could I ask Councillor Beddoe to explain to the members of the public why we are so informally dressed this evening?
Thank you. This is actually how I normally dress. Just to say that a group of us thought it would be nice if people wanted to wear festive ties, or in Councillor Andrews' case, a tinsel bowler hat, or sparkly tights, or a silly necklace, and make a donation to Friends of Dorset Care Leavers, who do brilliant work looking after our care experienced young people in Dorset and make them up little Christmas packages and things. So thank you to everyone that's donated, and I'm going to turn my flashy necklace off. Thank you.
Thank you for that good idea. Do we have any apologies?
Thank you. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Borden, Councillor Parks, Councillor Rob Hughes, Councillor Claudia Webb, Councillor David Took, and Councillor Jill Taylor.
Thank you. Is it your wish that I sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of October? Everyone in favour of that? Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? Yes.
Declare an interest in item 11, the Perfect Pleasure boats. We have clients who will be affected by that, so I will assume that to be a pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Any more declarations of interest? No. Thank you. So now I'm going to my report, and I'm going to first of all say, as Molly Rennie said, thank you all for supporting the White Ribbon event. It's very important that we give support to victims of domestic abuse, and if you want to contribute, there is a collecting tin in the members' room as well. Thank you very much. The second thing is I'd like to report the death of former County Councillor Philip Gowson, and Andy Skeets would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Andy Skeets, Westmoors and Three-Legged Cross. Philip Gowson passed away sadly recently. Philip was a strong political conservative who, behind all the horseplay and affectionate banter, was a caring, generous person. He wanted everyone to achieve the best they could, would unusually be prepared to make the effort to help people achieve just that. He certainly helped David Shortell and I in our transition from one party to another. Philip was a former chairman at East Dorset District Council and a long-serving councillor for the Parish Council, was a keen political mover and driver, well known in Westmoors, enjoying nothing better than hunting for Liberal Democrats in the hedgerows of his constituency, accompanied by one or two of his beloved dogs. He and Elaine rescued and supported through their local charity, Waggy Tails. Philip focused on a cancer charity in Romsey in later years. He was a guiding light and a father-like influence on me personally over the last few decades. We should remember his sterling work at Dorset, especially for saving young people's activity centres. He was, in my eyes, a larger-than-life character whose style was very much in your face. He did, of course, get the job done. I remember campaigning with Philip. Well, occasionally he'd stretch the boundaries a bit to the point of a deep gasp from his colleagues nearby. He served his community well, but sometimes his sheer exuberance got the better of him. I remember him well for his sense of humour, and many times he would try and sometimes achieve a pretense of some foreign person who just moved into Westmoors with some well-concocted issue. He pushed those boundaries so well, it was a difficult conversation, and then the penny would drop. We remember him, a lovely man with a great heart. He was well educated at grammar school, then a degree at Cambridge. He had a great working career home and abroad at a very high level. On moving to Grove Place in Romsey, Philip made the library his own. He was always supported and guided, thankfully, by his loving wife, Elaine. Strangely, no copies of Tony Blair's memoirs were ever to be found. He said near the end that he'd had a good life and he'd accepted it. It would be soon over. It's a credit to his memory and very rare for someone in their 90th year to have so many friends present at their funeral. Rest in peace, Philip. You were a good lad. Thank you.
Thank you for those words. Now we move on to item 5, public participation. The first question is submitted by Nicola Harper. Welcome, Nicola.
The question I'm going to put pertains to tree planting and a tree planting strategy for Dorset. And to give you a little bit of background, in the last 20 years, it has been recognised the importance that trees play for biodiversity, but also for mitigation, adaptation and resilience regarding the climate emergency. Further, the roles that trees play is of equal importance, if different, in the urban realm as well as in the countryside. It's now widely recognised that trees play an important role in people's health and well-being at all ages during their life. And this is reflected in house prices, with greener areas fetching a higher house price than their equivalent in less leafy areas. Reflecting on this, the Council has generously put in a grant scheme to facilitate tree planting by communities. Yet, for all this, there seems to be a reluctance to plant in existing urban areas. Particularly on streets, there is very little evidence of new tree planting on streets and roads. Tree planting and the management relies in Dorset on 2 policies: the Natural Environment, Climate and Ecology Strategy, and this document has links which seem to encourage tree planting, but it doesn't actually contain a policy or strategy for trees in the urban realm. And then, of course, there's the Tree Maintenance Policy document, but this pertains purely to the maintenance of trees, although it does promise to replace 2 trees for every tree removed. However, there's no tree strategy or a section pertaining to tree strategy within the existing green infrastructure strategy, investing in green people. Despite many other authorities having such a document and there being ample guidance of how to create one. Communities are being encouraged to find places to plant trees, but this can be difficult, especially when most of the land where people live is owned by Dorset Council. Communities, parish and town councils are operating within a vacuum. Without such a policy, I would suggest that trees will continue to be seen as a maintenance problem in the urban setting. Decisions on whether to plant trees will be taken on the basis of the disbenefits of trees, dominating their far more important and numerous benefits. I believe that, like other authorities, a strategy is urgently required which gives weight to the biodiversity, to climate change and to the needs of people living in Dorset. And so my question is, should Dorset Council not be prioritising the development of a tree strategy to ensure good canopy cover in its towns and villages, as well as its routes between the centres, in addition to the rural areas? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Andrews to reply.
Thank you for the question, Nicola. It's a very good question. Dorset Green Space, Council Green Space and National Landscape team planted over 8,000 Dorset and 5 community projects underway using the Dorset Council Community Tree Fund. Plus, we have a Dorset Council tree policy and a Natural Environment, Climate and Ecology Strategy in 2023, which promote the planting of trees. Therefore, there are numerous examples of excellent work already being done. I will be asking relevant officers to investigate how an overreaching Dorset tree strategy could bring all of this good work together.
Thank you. The second question is submitted by Giles Watts on behalf of the Dorset Climate Action Network.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Good evening, everybody. To Dorset Council's credit, it has consistently been against the proposed power fuel incinerator on Portland Island. We thank the former council administration that refused planning permission and the new administration for having written to the Deputy Prime Minister making clear their opposition to this dreadful scheme. The Portland incinerator has been dressed up as a low-carbon, job-creating asset, when in fact its highly polluting, high-carbon blight on the landscape will impact the health of our citizens, increase our carbon footprint, threaten our tourist industry, and could lose the world-class status of our Jurassic coastline. It is, in fact, a disgrace that the Secretary of State's representative approved the planning permission without properly considering the counter-arguments or the truthfulness of Power Fuel's case. In addition to fighting this ruling, we need to undermine the economic case for an incinerator on Portland. Certainly, the economics would definitely fail if carbon capture and storage had been required as a compulsory condition to the planning consent under the principle that the polluter should always pay. Refuse from a variety of sources will be required to make it work, and ironically, the most cost-effective source of fuel for the incinerator comes from the very people who want it least, the people of Dorset. So will Dorset Council state openly that, if built, they will never send any of Dorset's future refuse to the Portland incinerator, either directly or via their subcontractors? Even better, will Dorset Council commit to phasing out incineration as quickly as possible to concentrate on anaerobic digestion and food waste and better recycling of non-food waste? If so, you would certainly have the full support of many people in Dorset. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll ask Councillor Ireland to reply.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Watts, and good to see you here again. So I'm Councillor Nick Ireland, leader of the council, but climate change and environment come under my role as well. I just to say, I've got a written answer, but since your question was submitted, I've since written to Stephen Reid at DEFRA, specifically about environmental permitting. Anyway, on to the written answer, which you will receive later. So Dorset Council follows the waste hierarchy to reduce, reuse and recycle as much waste as possible, because this is how we will successfully tackle the climate implications of waste and reduce the amount of money we spend on waste disposal. I'm proud to say that we are the best performing unitary council in England, so our strategy is working. However, we know there's still more we can do. Energy from waste is a waste treatment option that's arguably better than landfill, given that it does produce some power from what is a fairly low calorific fuel in quotes. But it is also now consequently the UK's dirtiest form of energy production, as recently highlighted by the BBC. Giving planning permission and environmental permitting to new incineration plants without requiring carbon capture is contrary to every environmental policy and climate commitment this new Labour government has, and in my opinion is tantamount to a crime against humanity. Dorset Council's efforts to stop the Portland incinerator being built are still ongoing. Consumption is at the heart of a significant issue of the 66 million tonnes of waste produced in the UK, as well as the climate emergency. Reducing our consumption and moving to a circular economy where resources are designed to be reused and recycled will eliminate waste and the need for waste disposal facilities and their emissions. Upcoming national policy and legislation, such as the Extended Producer Responsibility, EPR, for packaging and simpler recycling will help towards this goal. Notwithstanding, whilst residents continue to produce waste, we have a legal obligation to dispose of that waste, and there are a few alternative options available to us. Our black bag, i.e. non-food waste, currently goes to a mechanical biological treatment plant in Canford, where it produces refuse-derived fuel that is burnt in incinerators. We will absolutely continue to work with our residents to reduce the amount of waste we collect to minimise the impact of incinerating waste in the future. However, while there's still an ongoing need to dispose of black bag waste, we wouldn't want to limit ourselves in disposable treatment options going forward. Furthermore, from a carbon perspective, The proximity principle should be considered in further tendering exercises where local facilities will have a lesser impact on our service. In addition to food waste, in relation to food waste, I should say, we have a very successful weekly food waste collection across the council's area, and that goes to anaerobic digestion facilities. Unfortunately, not all councils collect food waste. For example, I was in Manchester 2 weeks ago staying at my daughter's, and she has no food waste connection. It all goes in the black bag. Dorset Council is already committed to reducing waste and increasing recycling rates further through our waste strategy. We fully support residents in reducing, reusing and recycling their waste and work closely with communities to try and deliver this. If all residents in Dorset simply put the right stuff in the right bins, for example, then we could save over £1 million in disposal costs alone, not to mention the benefit this would have on the environment.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. The next question is also by Giles Watts. On behalf of Dorset Deserves Better.
Thank you for the answer to that last question. The Labour government's new housing target requires Dorset to build 3,230 new homes per year, up from the prior target of 1,788, which was already an unrealistically high number. With the reinstatement of the duty to cooperate, this could add a further 800 houses, pushing the annual target to around 4,000 per year. Over the 15-year period of the local plan, this means Dorset Council will have to find space to build 60,000 houses. There is no evidence that the Dorset Council area needs anything close to this level of housing development. The real housing crisis is a lack of genuinely affordable and low-cost social housing, and this new target will do little to address that. None of this is the council's making, but if implemented, such high numbers of new housing will be deeply damaging to Dorset's unique environment and countryside, put further pressure on our constrained infrastructure and services, and ultimately degrade Dorset's economy, which is largely based on agriculture and tourism. Such high numbers are also completely unrealistic. Developers have never built more than around 1,350 homes per year, barely a third of the required new target. So failing to meet the target would mean defaulting on the 5-year housing supply, handing back planning control to developers who would pick and choose those greenfield developments with the highest profit. Of course, there are ways in which such high housing numbers could theoretically be met. We could add to the endless urban sprawl around our larger towns, with horrible consequences for services and infrastructure, and we could force every village to double their size and clog up our rural road system. We could even develop some new towns, but where would they be located? Who would buy the houses? Where are the jobs? And what about the investment required? Instead, we urge Dorset Council to submit a local plan that puts the people of Dorset first and can insist that the 10,000 building plots with existing planning permission are actually built. Prioritise the use of brownfield sites along with Dorset Council's own land and sets local targets for affordable and low-cost social housing. Such a plan would not meet the government's new housing target, but it would address the core housing issues of Dorset, be environmentally sustainable and preserve what makes this county so special. It would also prevent resistance from almost every environmental and social organisation and almost every community, town and parish council. So the question is Dorset Council prepared to put Dorset first and push back against the government's damaging, unnecessary and downright absurd housing targets? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I'll ask Councillor Bartlett to reply.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Ward Member for Wimble Minster and Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning. And thank you for your question, Mr Watts. The Government's revised housing targets were published as part of a wide-ranging planning consultation this year, and Cabinet agreed this Council's response in September. We objected to the proposed housing targets, which would increase the Dorset target to 3,230 homes a year, on the grounds that they were undeliverable and would cause harm to Dorset's environment. The consultation period is now closed and we await the Government's conclusions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, and thank you for your questions. We'll now move on to item 6, There are no petitions and no deputations. So item 7 is the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this fairly brief, if I may. So the new Cabinet newsletter has been published today. Hopefully you'll find it useful and informative. Devolution, we haven't had the white paper published. We thought it might be this week. There was a CCN meeting scheduled for Monday, which has now been cancelled and hasn't been actually put back in the diary yet. They're now expecting the white paper possibly the week after next. So until then, we have no further details, and I can't share anything with you because there is nothing to share, I'm afraid. The intention will be to produce a briefing note and hold a webinar once we've digested the contents of the white paper. That may be before Christmas, it may be just after Christmas. And on the benefits of devolution, I just noted one of the questions that Councillor Pothecary is going to mention later in the agenda. And she quite rightly highlights how, yet again, Dorset Council gets less than its neighbours as a result of basically an opaque funding formula for buses. My hope, and indeed my expectation, is this Council's future membership of combined authority through devolution will result in an equitable distribution of funding. Fingers crossed. The intention tonight was to announce the news of our Chief Executive, Matt Prosser's new role as the head honcho for Wellington, capital city of New Zealand, at this meeting, but there was a leak overnight from New Zealand, from down under, and it forced our hands, so hence why you found out earlier. I'm sure you'll all join me with extending our congratulations to Matt and wish him well. He will, of course, be around for a few months yet, and there'll be plenty of time for goodbyes, so we'll leave it there. We'll start the search for a new Chief Executive immediately, and I'm meeting Matt tomorrow morning to kick off this process. But given the timescales and notice periods involved, it may well be necessary to have an interim, potentially. We will find out as we go down the process. And that's all I'm going to say. And I'll take any questions on what I've just said.
Are there any questions on the Leader's speech? Councillor Leary.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. On the subject of devolution, I raised concerns in the previous administration when Councillor Flower was leading it about so-called devolution. I think you and I are in some agreement, which surely is a Christmas miracle in itself, that what is being talked about isn't true devolution. What concerns me is, can you give me assurances you will not sell us or the sovereignty of this council out in the negotiations over devolution? You know, sure, we might get some more money for buses, but I think it says in the Bible, what does it profit a man to gain the world but lose his soul? What does it profit us to lose our sovereignty to gain a couple of double-deckers? You know, we cannot just, this is a slippery slope. We keep getting told this isn't a merger, it's not a merger. I think we were told that over LGR last time, and I don't want this to be the beginning of the steps towards that. I think it was bad enough, people used to complain we're run by East Dorset, now people complain we're run by councillors from Weymouth. Try being run by a mayor from Bournemouth or a combined authority based in Taunton. Can you just assure me that you're going to maintain sovereignty this council has over the business of running Dorset?
The very quick answer would be yes. Jim McMahon has made several statements. He's made statements about filling in the map, about, obviously the Council of Regions and Nations has already been created. My concern as a Liberal Democrat and also as leader of this council is that it's been done for the wrong reasons. It's been done for the benefit of central government, for their convenience essentially, rather than the benefits coming upwards. But however, we have basically been told in no uncertain terms that this is a process we're going to have to engage in. And if you're not in a combined authority, the message is you're not going to get any money. In reality, we'll find out more when the white paper comes out. Previous devolution deals have been essentially bespoke. So each existing combined authority has different powers, essentially. Jim McMahon has said that it's going to be very prescriptive. So it is what it says on the tin. You'll be told explicitly what your powers will be. Hopefully there will be money coming along with that. So we'll produce a briefing paper to explain what it basically says. And I guess it will probably then come to Cabinet and then come to full council for a final decision. That's going to be months and months off. Even if we are in the first tranche, the vanguard, or the forlorn hope, whichever phrase you want to use, realistically, May 26 would be the earliest you could possibly have an election, I suspect. And I've already asked our officers, on the basis that we may, or more likely, have a mayoral combined authority, to already put the deal together and basically a prospectus to make sure that the Mayor of Casterbridge is based in Dorchester and not in Bridgewater, for example.
Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. The announcement that our Chief Executive is moving to pastures new, I know caught some of us off guard this morning when that announcement was made, but I did notice in the write-up that he is going to work for a mayor whose first name is Tory. And the one thing we do know on this side of the chamber is the Chief Executive is very gifted at handling Tories. He knows exactly what to do with them. But what I did want to touch on was the leader's announcement there that we may be in the territory of an interim chief executive for a period of time. Now, I know previously the Liberal Democrat Party has expressed a public opinion that it wouldn't work with Conservatives on this council. However, this is such a monumental change for this council, and we are in the season of goodwill to all. Will the leader be confirming that indeed it will be a member appointment which will include prominent members from the opposition groups in both the interim appointment and a permanent appointment?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any more questions to the leader? Well, thank you very much. We now move on to item 8, questions from Dorset councillors. We have quite a lot this evening. The first is submitted by Councillor Flower.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Well, it's Councillor Spencer Flower, Verwood Ward. My question sparked off by the comment at the 10th of October, full council, we fixed the 5-year land supply position, which I thought, that's interesting, I'm going to explore that. The planning inspector apparently reviewed Dorset Council's position and concluded that we could just about demonstrate the 5-year land supply again against our needs target, which is welcome as it gives weight to our local plan policies, enabling us to determine where development goes and so protect our greenbelt and other undeveloped land against inappropriate development. However, a note of caution. With a 5.02-year land supply, this position is extremely precarious. There are concerns across both private and corporate sectors regarding the extended times being taken to deal with even the most basic planning applications for new homes. Service delivery performance was high on the agenda during the first 5 years of this council, and we now see the reward of that. However, anecdotal evidence since May 24 seems to suggest that unnecessary, burdensome and overly bureaucratic processes are being applied in serial fashion when dealing with planning applications for new homes. For example, the burden of validation requirements is way above national requirements, slowing down the submission of applications and straining small house builders and businesses trying to expand, impacting on the viability of local and national house builders on the delivery of vital housing and boosting the local economy. Whilst the statistics regarding overall performance from development management may appear to be on target, being met, do they disguise the length of time taken to grant such planning applications that involve new homes? Of the 30% or so applications that are not determined within the statutory timeframe, how many of these were for new homes? From the long list of requirements in the validation checklist through to the change to the scheme of delegation, pushing more applications through planning committee process, these factors must surely have a negative impact on the knife-edge housing land supply. We surely need a more granular performance statistic to make sure the service is running at full steam across all planning application types, especially for new homes, and across the geographical areas. Having a breakdown of performance with highlight areas for improvement rather than just saying we're exceeding expectations across a broad range of planning applications and types and areas. There are also concerns from applicants about a notable increase in the number of requests for extensions of time. This is of concern due to the inevitable increase in process costs in determining planning applications and the inevitable impact on the delivery of much needed additional housing in the increasingly difficult market conditions. I should add that my question is linked specifically to the process and not the performance of officers working in the service. It would seem it's the process and application policy guidance that's the issue, not the work ethic of our officers, which is in urgent need of reform. Given the pressures on finances, it poses the question about the current average cost of processing planning applications for new homes, which has been determined under delegated powers and those referred to planning committees for decision? I asked this question given the increase in the number of planning applications being referred to committee by the chairman of an area planning committee with limited justification, following policy changes introduced by the Liberal Democrat administration after the May local elections. So my question is, what action is being taken by the Liberal Democrat administration to maximise the on-time determination of planning applications while the council has the benefit of a 5-year housing land supply? Noting, of course, the risk of not doing so will cause Dorset to see planning applications by appeal with inappropriate housing development on Greenbelt and other undeveloped land ahead of Dorset's council publishing its first Dorset-wide local plan. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I'll ask Councillor Bartlett to reply.
Introduce yourself
again. Thank you for the question, Councillor Flower, I think. As set out in the member's question, the Planning Inspectorate confirmed in September this year that Dorset Council can demonstrate a housing land supply of 5.02 years. The inspector's report states that the council is entitled to rely on this position until the 31st of October 2025, in accordance with the National Planning Policy and Guidance, and the statement is a material consideration in the determination of applications and appeals. However, it is also correct that the supply is only just over 5 years. If the nationally proposed increases to housing targets come into effect, then at the end of the fixed period after 31st of October 2025, the council will have a very much reduced housing land supply until the adoption of the new local plan. As such, we need to consider the benefits of providing housing alongside other benefits of a scheme and any adverse impacts in making decisions on applications for housing, and may consider that some development should be approved despite being contrary to policies in the current local plan. As members will be aware, the Planning Service has worked significantly to improve the proportion of non-major applications which are determined within 8 weeks since the formation of Dorset Council in 2019. Whilst the Council does seek to minimise the use of extensions of time in general, there are cases where these can be mutually beneficial to the Council and applicants. For example, extensions of time can be used to allow for submission of amended plans which may overcome potential reasons for refusal, and which may improve the overall quality of the development, and to allow completion of Section 106 agreements to secure financial contributions and other obligations that are required to make the development acceptable in planning terms. The Council has very clear guidance on our approach to negotiation on amended plans to minimise unnecessary delays to applications. In some cases, extensions of time are also used to allow time for referral to the Planning Committee where there is required following the scheme of delegation. The Council updated the scheme of delegation in July this year, but it remains the case that most applications are determined by officers under delegated powers. 97% of applications were determined under delegated powers in Q2 of this year, which is broadly comparable with the quarterly figures over the last 2 years, between 96% and 98% of applications determined under delegated powers. The Council is taking a number of steps to support timely decision-making and facilitate housing delivery. The validation checklist sets out the information required to be submitted with a planning application. The current validation checklist was adopted on the 1st of October 2022 and has been regularly updated since then to reflect the changes in national legislation and local requirements. The checklist is now due a further comprehensive review, and the officers will be undertaking this review in the coming months. The aim of the review will be to identify any opportunities to streamline the information requirements while still ensuring that sufficient information is submitted at the outset to enable proper consideration and assessment of each planning application and to avoid delays at the decision-making stage due to the missing information. The Council offers a comprehensive pre-application advice service which can help identify issues at an early stage, which can then be addressed before an application is submitted, hence facilitating prompt decision-making at the application stage. Officers promoted the benefits of using the pre-application advice service at a recent virtual agents forum attended by around 200 planning agents who operate across Dorset. The Council has submitted 6 sites through the New Homes Accelerator call for sites, seeking expertise, assistance and resources from government to help overcome barriers to delivery of homes. The Council is using funding secured through the Local Nutrient Mitigation Fund to delivering nutrient mitigation credits in the Poole Harbour catchment, helping to bolster the supply of credits in this catchment and therefore enabling planning consents to be issued with pre-commencement conditions to ensure nutrient mitigation is provided before the development starts on site. Officers are currently working towards the release of the first Dorset Council nutrient mitigation credits early in 2025. Officers will also be reviewing sites currently included within the 5-year housing land supply to identify any barriers to delivery of housing on these sites and any actions the Council may be able to take to help facilitate successful delivery. I recognise the wealth of experience Councillor Flower has in planning, and I'm happy to meet with him outside of this meeting should he wish to do so. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for that detailed answer. Councillor Spencer, do you want to answer?
Come back and thank Councillor Bartlett for his very comprehensive response to my very comprehensive question. I'd welcome the opportunity to have a conversation outside the meeting, and one of the things I would love to talk to him about is the processes used in the planning process, which I do understand reasonably well. Thank you.
Thank you. The second question is submitted by Councillor Goins.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor Barry Gorringe from St Leonards and St Ives. My ward of St Leonards and St Ives has a population of 7,000 residents, a higher population than towns such as Wareham, Beaminster, Sturminster, Newton and Lyme Regis. It also has the highest age range of residents over 66 years of age, which at 39% is higher than the Dorset average of 29%. Our only bus service, the number 38 Moor bus, which runs from Ringwood to Ferndown, is crucial for an ageing population who don't have cars or driving licences. We also don't have an active doctor's surgery. Currently, the last bus leaves Ferndown at 13:10 and Ringwood at 13:50, and then the bus goes on to be used on the school run. My residents who wish to or need to visit Poole or Bournemouth hospitals, or even their doctor's surgeries in either Ringwood or Ferndown, and have an afternoon appointment, have no way of getting back from Ferndown or Ringwood by bus. Their only option is a taxi at £15, or walk. The distance from Ferndown is nearly 4 miles, or from Ringwood is over 2 miles. And at this time of the year, it's all in darkness. We don't have any street lights. I note that Dorset Council are about to receive or have received a government grant of £3.8 million for buses and travel. Can the portfolio holder for travel allocate some of these monies towards extending the number 38 bus service between up to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday to allow my elderly residents to get home safely? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Andrews to reply?
Councillor John Andrews, Sherborne East, Cabinet Member for Police Services. Thank you very much, Councillor Gorringe, for your question. Whereas Dorset Council welcomes the additional bus funding, but is rather disappointed with the amount, we're waiting for the offer letter to set out the conditions on how this money can be spent. So we don't know how we can spend it yet. This funding will help us deliver the improved bus service and infrastructure aligned with our new council plan priorities and strategic bus priorities set out within the bus service improvement plan. However, the £1.3 million revenue funding and the £2 million capital is only a small part of what we require to transform the bus network across Dorset. We are working closely with our bus operators to make improvements. The 38 is a commercial bus service, and any changes will need to be discussed and agreed with the bus company who operate this service. I've set up and had the last one of the public transport EAPs this afternoon, and this cross-party group will be reporting its recommendation to the Placing and Resources Overview Committee in 2025 once it has completed its review work.
Thank you. Have you got a supplementary question?
Yes, will the portfolio holder meet with myself and my fellow councillor, Councillor Bryan, outside of this meeting once you know what this money can be used for and whether you can help my residents? Thank you.
Yes, I certainly will. Barry.
Thank you. Question 3, submitted by Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor O'Leary, Little Preston. In May, the then fresh-faced cabinet member, he had leisure then, came back to Littlemore to meet myself and Councillor Peter Dickinson to discuss the issue of congestion along Littlemore Road. Now a badly placed island crossing has made the issue even worse. Can the cabinet member give me an update on plans to help resolve this growing issue, as I haven't seen him in Home Bargains lately?
Thank you. Councillor Andrews to reply.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Leary. Thank you very much for your question, and thank you for the comment. I'm not sure Ray will be very happy about it, but there you go. Yes, and I haven't been to Home Bargains lately. My wife hasn't required me to go down there. Once again, thank you for your question. The pedestrian refuge island crossing installed as part of the Levels development to the north of Littlemore Road is well placed to promote the sustainable transport to and from the development. The crossing is on the pedestrian and cyclist desire lines from the development to access the local service and beyond. The locations were assessed during the planning process and have received planning permissions. The crossings are uncontrolled and located to maintain lane widths along Littlemore Road. The only impact on vehicle traffic is when drivers choose to slow or stop to allow pedestrians or cyclists to cross the road. The development also benefits from a travel plan to promote sustainable travel modes to the new residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, sorry. The problem is, John, is when the bus is stopped, you can't overtake it because the island's in the way. But the thing you come down to meet me in back in May was about trying to turn out of that junction. When you go in Home Bargains, you buy all your Christmas gear and all the other bits and pieces, your fish and chips. You're trying to turn out back onto Littlemore Road, John. You know exactly the issue. I need something on those junctions, roundabouts, whatever, but you've got to give me something, please.
We'll try, Councillor O'Leary, but the chips keep falling out my hand when I'm turning the steering wheel out. I do. I'll come down and see you again, Louis, you and Peter.
Thank you. Question 4, submitted by Councillor Somper.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And can I thank the portfolio holder, Councillor Andrews, for coming to Melbury Abbas to the public meeting a few weeks ago, and for the support that he's shown me during the issues that I'm going to be asking the questions on. So following the recent storms and high rainfall across my ward, I saw homes being flooded, erosion of riverbanks, and significant disruption to residents and to road users and cyclists. It is clear that changing weather patterns will exacerbate these issues in the future, underscoring the urgent need for expertise and robust flood defences. This is not merely a matter of responding to the immediate crisis, but being proactively safeguarding our communities against any further harm. My question for the Cabinet is regarding the prioritisation of budget allocation. Can assurances be given not only to the residents I represent, but also to those across the county who have faced similar challenges, that sufficient funding will be allocated to support communities severely affected by flooding? Additionally, I urge consideration of significant investment in long-term flood mitigation measures to protect villages such as Shroton and Fontmore Magna in my ward, the Beacon Ward, from the increasingly frequent and severe flooding events we are witnessing. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Ask Councillor Andrews to reply.
That's my show tonight. Thank you very much, Councillor Somper, for your question. I'll respond in this way. The primary source of capital funding for reducing the risk of internal flooding to residential properties is via individual bids to DEFRA. Some named storms may attract central government funding via flood recovery grants, but this also tends to be focused on the more urban areas which have a higher number of properties affected. A viable and sustainable flood scheme needs to be identified, which is a challenge for most rural communities, which have relatively small numbers of dispersed affected properties, with its complex multi-flooding sources. Homeowners can look to protect their own properties by installing property flood resilient measures such as doorway floodboards, water resistant doors, vent covers and fixed pumps. Our flood risk management team has a role in investigating flooding incidents and identifying the sustainable flood risk reduction measures to support long-term community resilience. Flooding in rural areas can be complex and needs careful assessment by working with other organisations. Sources can range from groundwater, surface water, block water courses, or a combination thereof. In relation to the highways, the majority of funding for improvements to the highway infrastructure comes from central government through Department for Transport. Full details of Dorset Highways funding allocations are expected following the government's spring statement. We anticipate an increase in funding levels, with climate resilience being the factor in that additional funding.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you very much for that. And presumably then you can be lobbying for funding for these issues, but can we also be prioritising the areas that are susceptible and known for flooding to be on the list to have a regular jetting work completed on the gutters, on the drains in those areas, because I'm not sure that that's always happening. I don't think that's been happening in all my villages where this is an incident.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, no, it hasn't been happening because there was no funding in for cyclic maintenance in this year's budget. And there hasn't been over the last 5 years. Well, not just the last 5 years, the last 15 years. I would love to put cyclic maintenance in. It costs £2.3 million. I don't know where I'm going to find that from. And I'm not, basically, because we're in the position we are in. We're all in. I will ask for it again. I've got a feeling I know what the answer's going to be. But I'd be all for preventative maintenance rather than non-preventative maintenance and reactive maintenance, because it costs more.
Thank you. The next question is submitted by Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Councillor Piers Brown. I'm the ward member for Cranbourne Chase, which, as we know, is the most beautiful ward in Dorset. But it is that way due to the stewardship of our Dorset farmers, who look after every square inch of it, while producing high quality and high welfare food that we often take for granted. Worryingly, on the 12th of September, it was suggested that the sale of some of our county farms estates was being considered. Our county farms are incubators for the next generation of Dorset farmers. They give them room to grow, develop their skills, and to take on the challenge of running their own farm one day. With over 65% of farmers in the UK of 55 years or over, I'm sure you can understand why it is more important than ever that we back British farming. Therefore, can the portfolio holder reassure me, the council, and more importantly, our rural communities, that not a single inch of our Dorset County Farms estate is going to be sold off?
Can I call on Councillor Biggs to reply?
Thank you. Councillor Richard Biggs, Panbury Ward, Dorchester, and Cabinet Member for Property, Assets and Economic Growth. Thank you, Councillor Brown, for your question. I think it's fair to say that this council recognises the very important role that the county farm estate has provided for over 100 years in giving generations of new Dorset farmers a pathway to farming, opportunities that may not have been available through conventional routes. I would also add that it is clear to me that this estate has been underinvested in, leading to a backlog of maintenance issues, hence the requirement for a detailed holistic review. This asset class review of the council's farm estate, in line with the approach set out in the newly adopted Strategic Asset Management Plan, approved by the Cabinet in October, and is currently being undertaken. This will enable the consideration of the current and alternative uses for all assets within the farm estate, ensuring that the council is making the best of its farm estate and seizing opportunities to maximise the financial and social return. The asset review process examines the cost and condition of the asset with a key focus on the Council's key priorities, providing high-quality housing, growing our economy, communities for all, and responding to the climate and nature crisis. A wide range of data is collected and analysed, including the premises cost, 10-year review, valuation, energy efficient and carbon data, development potential, and condition of the asset. Where the condition of the asset is poor and requires significant investment to ensure it is fit for purpose, it may be pragmatic to dispose of the asset and invest the capital into the remaining farm estate. The asset review will result in a farm strategy for consideration by the Cabinet. The strategy will guide future decisions making in relation to the farm estate. The Cabinet will, of course, take due regard to observations from the panel members of the Reformed County Farms Advisory Panel, who will meet, long awaited, in January 25 to look at those initial findings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there supplementary?
Thank you for that response. It is concerning and, in my view, a mistake waiting to happen to look to sell off some of our county farms estate, irrespective of the reasons as to why. Therefore, can I just seek some reassurance as part of that process, if the council was to sell off any county farms, that it won't be sold off for house building, for solar panel fields, but instead we ensure it's retained in perpetuity for the purpose of farming, to make sure that Dorset Council doesn't turn its back on farmers like the Labour government have.
I'm afraid I simply can't make that offer to you, because we simply don't know what is... Until we look at each option on its merits. And it may be that it's unviable to farm on certain bits of land, and it may be better use in somewhere else and invest. You know, we've got empty farms that we need significant investment. We haven't got that capital at the moment to invest in those areas, so they're remaining empty and a problem, which means farmers can't go into those areas. So I can't give that assurance, I'm afraid. Obviously, we want to maintain as maximum opportunities for farmers for future generations, and that's part of the aim. But it would be wrong of me to make any assurance that we never ever sell a simple inch.
Thank you. We now move on to question 6, submitted by Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Val Apothecary, Gillingham Ward. We've been made aware that the Government Transport Secretary has allocated £83 million in funding into 2026 for the South West Councils. The investment is said to ensure better bus services across the South West, for enhancing popular routes, protecting rural services, and increasing bus use for shoppers, socialising and commuting. It was also said that every region in England will benefit from the funding, but those areas which have been historically underserved are being particularly prioritised. The South West allocation has been divided up as follows: BCP, 6,016,436, Cornwall, 10,589,782, Devon, 11,615,699, Dorset, 3,815,959. To say that I was incredibly disappointed to read that Dorset Council has only been allocated 3.8 million from the scheme is an understatement. We all know that it costs far more to deliver any service in the rural areas, and I wonder if anyone from our council has challenged the paltry sum that we will receive. In comparison to Devon's 11.6 million, a county very similar to ours in its rurality. In Gillingham, we're extremely fortunate to be on a mainline railway station from London to Exeter. But having arrived in the town, you're faced with very limited onward travel options. There's no service at all to Shaftesbury, our next door town, on Saturday or Sunday. This, the jewel of tourism in the north of the county. On weekdays, you can travel to Shaftesbury and from there take the bus to Salisbury or Blandford Forum. From Blandford, you can change the bus and travel to here, our county town. Although it's worth saying that it's almost impossible to do the return journey in the same day. Occasionally, we have buses arriving in Gillingham from Wiltshire, looking after their residents who live just over the border. Most villages in the far north never see a bus, only school buses. There are no buses for work or buses for further education. The portfolio holder, Councillor Andrews, is well aware of the high regard in which I hold him, but I would like to know the bidding criteria by which the money was allocated between the counties and how we only received such a miserly sum of 3.8 million out of a total of 83 million. It's hard to believe until you say it, isn't it? Furthermore, please could I receive assurances that some of this funding will see a real and tangible benefit to Gillingham and the 8 villages that I and others represent. Lastly, as the leader has mentioned, in light of our devolution proposal, I would seek reassurance that this sort of situation will not, cannot happen in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I call on Councillor Andrews to reply.
Thank you very much, Councillor Apothecary, for your question, or 2 questions. You sneaked one in there. The allocation of 3.8 million was not received as a result of bidding for a start. We didn't bid for this, we were given it. But it's been allocated to us by authorities according to the national needs-based formula, the same one that's failed us for all these years. The details of the formula have not been provided to us, as with other formula-based allocations. Dorset fares badly in relation to other neighbouring authorities. This issue has been raised repeatedly through elected members and senior officers with government, including during a session with the Transport Select Committee on the 25th of January 23, where Councillor Bryan gave evidence. We will make a commitment to continue to raise the issue of fairer funding for Dorset. The consultant reviewing authority's bus service improvement plan recently praised Dorset's revised plan. So our revised plan has been taken in very good stead. Still didn't give us any money though. However, the content of the BSIP does not currently influence the amount of grant received through the formula process. The BSIP sets out our ambitions to improve bus services and infrastructure across Dorset. The 3.8 million will be used to improve the bus network using the priorities identified in the BSIP. We are engaging with operators as part of our enhanced partnership to deliver elements to the BSIP that will provide most benefit to the residents in the long term. I too feel your pain. I'm sure there are lots of councillors here who feel your pain in the ruralities. I know Councillor Legg has 19 parishes. I think only one's fed by a bus. It's a growing problem and it's something we need to sort out. But unless we get funding, we can't do it. Our realistic aim for funding would be between 16 and 40 million pounds to complete what we want to do.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Chair. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that last statement. In reality, it would be 16 to 40 million pounds. 16 to 40. That's an improvement.
We haven't got it.
It's interesting that you said that this was no bidding. They've just been really kind and given us this paltry sum. So I wonder how Devon, a county I have a lot of affection for, managed to get theirs just given with no bidding. The other thing is, I know quite a bit about BSIP, as you quite rightly said. Councillor Bryan did a couple of consultations and we thought we'd put together a good plan twice, actually. And that was neglected as well. So my question is, what are we going to do about it? because it's not really ideal to come to meetings like this and bemoan the fact that we're not being treated fairly. So I would quite like to see a plan for equality, please.
In this afternoon's Executive Advisory Panel on this issue, Councillor Bryan and myself have agreed, with his kind words, because he's got contacts, to go up and see the chairman of the Select Committee in Westminster to talk about the reason why we get unfair funding formula. And I commend Councillor Bryan's work on this in the past, because he did an excellent job and he tried his hard for Dorset, tried his hardest for Dorset. But people have got these ears that close when Dorset comes to them. And when rural counties come to them, to be perfectly honest with you, because even if you look at our neighbours who've got more than us, they're still lower than somewhere like Greater Manchester. They've got buses coming out of everywhere, all parts of Manchester. They've got 38 million. Something's not right, and it's combined authorities that are the problem.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Question 7 is submitted by Councillor Quayle.
Thank you, Chairman. And turning to an issue that we absolutely can deal within this authority. In 2021, following an alarming amount of wildlife fatalities, I was approached by a local wildlife organisation regarding warning signs being installed to raise awareness on our highways. Unfortunately, I was advised at the time that permission was needed by central government for Dorset Council before Dorset Council would be able to facilitate such a policy. Much to my surprise, Dorset Council received authority to give Council regulatory permission to use the small wildlife animal signs from the Secretary of State for Transport on the 22nd of December 2023, nearly a year ago now. Given that Dorset Council has declared a nature emergency being the word, and considering that several local animal welfare organisations, and today I was advised also parish councils, have offered to cover installation costs or ongoing costs, can the Cabinet Member for Highways clarify why a policy has yet to be established to allow the installation of hedgehog signs on the highway?
Councillor Andrews again.
Thank you, Councillor Quayle, for your question. Thank you for the question and the opportunity to reinforce my commitment to the Council's nature declaration. As you said, on the 22nd of December 2023, Dorset Council received regulatory permission from the Secretary of State for Transport to use small wild animal signs under Section 63 and 65 of the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. This authorisation permits the Council to erect these signs with the primary objective of improving road safety and contributed to the wildlife preservation by alerting drivers to the presence of small wild animals, such as hedgehogs, in certain areas. As a council has a prescriptive power to use these signs, a distinct policy is not required. However, we do need to adopt a strategic approach to implementation involving town and parish councils and local animal welfare organisations. We must ensure that there is adequate balance to control to enable the correct sites to be identified and prioritised, and to comply with the aspirations of the Council's rural roads network. When considering any sign, we need to conserve the outstanding quality of the Dorset landscape and settlements while delivering safe and convenient highway network. The trial of the new hedgehog signs has been undertaken, with signs erected in Lyme Regis. Following on from the trial, the criteria for wider implementation of small animal signage is being prepared, ready for more signs to go up in the new year.
Do you have a supplementary?
More statement, really, Chairman. Thank you for that, Councillor Andrews, so that it does look like we have some movement, because when I've engaged with officers recently, I've been told that there needs to be a policy. In fact, local wildlife organisations have also been told that there needs to be a policy. So I'm quite interested to hear tonight that a policy isn't actually needed. We can put it up. But when we've engaged with the council, we've been getting a different message. I would like to ask the cabinet member if you would meet with me and potentially some of these wildlife organisations, particularly in the north, and some of them are here tonight, to discuss this, because the message we are getting when we contact the council is very different to the one you've just put out.
Yeah, Councillor Quayle, thank you very much for that. I'm unaware of that. I know it has been a bit of a sticky situation in some cases. However, I will say that, like every other road improvement or road sign requirement, it will be at the request of the local town or parish council. And there might be a requirement for that local town or parish council to actually pay for those signs.
Thank you. Item question 8. Question 8 is submitted by Councillor Quayle.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The Royal British Legion estimates, estimates that over 10,000 local benefit awards per year involve military compensation, with 4 out of 5 councils treating this compensation as income, which is outrageous in my opinion. Could the responsible cabinet member confirm if Dorset Council delivers any local benefits or grants that consider military service compensation when determining eligibility? If so, which local benefits or grants, and is there any intention to revisit these policies?
Ask Councillor Clifford to reply.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Member for Chickerell Ward and Cabinet Member for Finance. So thank you very much for the question, a really good question. There are a number of benefits and grants that are appropriate in this case, and I'll focus on the main local ones, as you've asked. First, council tax support. We fully disregard war pensioner income compensation under this scheme. Secondly, disabled facilities grants. While statutory criteria is set nationally, Dorset Council does have some discretion, and we have plans in place to exclude military compensation awards from future assessments. So I think that's good news for those who need our support and help, and I hope everyone will support this approach as it comes through. Thirdly, there are 2 housing areas. Discretionary housing payments. Here, funding is limited and provided by the government. Applications are assessed case by case and do include military compensation. Our teams, though, do have some discretion in this area, so it may be that in some cases they disregard military income. This policy is being reviewed regularly. And the final area is a housing area, housing allocation, our policy to allocate housing. Here we do exclude any lump sum payments armed forces members receive as compensation for injury or disabilities from relevant financial assessments. My final word on this, and it's a really important issue, I do agree with you. This council, over many years and in many forms, has had strong links and is proud of its relationships with the armed forces. Dorset has welcomed the various military bases around our county and supported serving personnel, veterans, and importantly, their families. I'm sure we're all looking to extend and strengthen those bonds through the Armed Forces Covenant.
Do you have a supplementary?
Chairman, just to say thank you very much for that, and it's pleasing to hear that some of those policies are being looked into. I would just ask that if we could have that in writing in those areas where officers have discretion. I mean, that's open-ended, and I would like something in writing saying that officers don't have to take that into account, because then when we put it into writing, it's in black and white, whereas if it's discretionary, well, we all know what that really means.
I'm very happy to provide a slightly fuller version of you with a little bit more detail.
Thank you. Now we've got the last question, which is submitted by Councillor Trite.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Bill Trite, Swanage, Ward and Tailender. Since, 1, the high demand to attend the public inquiry into the Sandbank Ferry Company's increased charges application has been given as the reason for the inquiry being located away from Studland Village Hall, and since the new venue selected for the revised date is in Poole rather than in Purbeck, while the people who will be clearly most disadvantaged if the application is successful are mainly resident in Purbeck, will Dorset Council apply its best efforts to having the public inquiry move back into Purbeck, where there are at least 4 venues of a sufficient size and quality to facilitate the inquiry, even in the unlikely event that a further postponement of the inquiry's commencement were necessary. Thank you.
Councillor Andrews again.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor Troy, and it was good to see you in Sherborne on Sunday. Well done, you know, the most beautiful town in Dorset. Officers are working closely with Swanage Town Council, PCP Council and local parish councils responding to the Sandbanks ferry inquiry. Representations have been made to the inspector regarding the location of the public inquiry. The inspector requested that the applicant find a suitable venue and explore several of the venues proposed by the local community, including the Molan Theatre, Baptist Church and Springfield Hotel. For operational reasons, these have been deemed unsuitable for an inquiry of the size and nature. Public notice has now been issued and confirms that inquiry will commence at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, the 21st of January 2025 at Poole Harbour Commissioners Terminal North Lounge. An evening session is being held on Wednesday, the 22nd of January 2025, commencing at 6:30 in the Springfield Country Hotel in Wareham. I'm also advised that the inquiry sessions will be live streamed and recordings will be available for subsequent viewing.
Thank you. Do you have a subsequent?
A brief supplementary, Madam Chairman, if I may. Thank you for that. And does the Cabinet member appreciate that the present switching of the inquiry to Poole leads Swanage and Purbeck residents to conclude, quite reasonably in my view, that it's a deliberate ploy to discourage and dissuade them from attending. And it's for this reason that Dorset Council needs to be seen to be trying to switch the venue back to Purbeck, as indeed Swanage Town Council is similarly doing. Thank you.
I have sympathies, but I thought I just read out that they're having one in Wareham, an evening session. It's 6:30 on 25th of January. I know my colleague, council colleague, Councillor Wilson, has been very heavily involved in the inquiry and submitting stuff to the inquiry. So, yeah, we will make representations, but it's not our choice.
Thank you. We finished with the council questions now. We'll move on to item 9, the council plan, and Councillor Ireland will introduce it.
Thank you, Chair. So, Councillor Nick Ireland, Leader of Council and Responsibilities for Climate Performance and Safeguarding. So I'll take it as read that members have read the paper, so I won't read the introduction verbatim. As it says in the paper's preamble, this new council plan sets out this council's vision, values and strategic priorities for the period of the current administration. But actually, it's more than that. Crucially, many of the things we start over the next 4.5 years will exist beyond the next Dorset Council elections and continue to improve the lives of our residents into the next decade and beyond. The plan has been through several iterations and revisions from its first cut by our officers, through the big conversation engagement events in the summer, feedback from parish and town councils, feedback from our partners such as the NHS and the police, and finally input from members of both Joint Overview and Cabinet. This plan includes every relevant change arising, including those made by Councillors Weller and Gibson at Cabinet recently. If I may, on highways and waste in particular, we recognise how important these services are to residents, and we are committed to their continued high-quality delivery. However, we have not explicitly made these priorities because it's effectively business as usual, whereas the 4 new priorities are all stretch areas where this new administration is keen to improve delivery and performance in order to achieve the ambitions set out on our manifesto. Finally, it's important to note that this document will be underpinned by various strategy documents where priorities, policies and further targets will be detailed. These include, for example, the upcoming revised waste strategy and the latest iteration of the local transport plan, both of which will benefit from the usual routes through Overview Committee and Cabinet, where members' input will be duly considered. So it's my pleasure to recommend this to Council, and the recommendation is to approve the paper, obviously, and Councillor Robinson is going to second, I believe.
Would you like to speak now as a seconder?
Councillor Steve Robinson, Litchfield Travels in Upton. I'm very happy to second this. It's been through a thorough process, and as Councillor Ireland indicates, it's stretching, and it's good to be stretched sometimes.
Councillor Flower would like to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Spencer Flower, Verwood Ward. Much has been said and written about the new Liberal Democrat Dorset plan being brought to members this evening for approval. Having some knowledge and understanding of what a council plan ought to cover, I'm hugely underwhelmed by the draft before us this evening. There is a massive imbalance, focusing far too much on what's been described as manifesto commitments, and in doing so, creating significant omissions, which are serious, with only passing references to many of the key frontline services provided by this council. The two previous Dorset plans were based on a strong cross-party ethos, rather than a focus on a one-party policy bias, which kept party politics out of the debate. For example, there's very little mention, other than passing reference, of the key priorities identified by the public in the most recent resident survey, satisfaction survey, and page 37, if anybody wants to look at it. One of the top 6 is mentioned specifically in the plan before us this evening, out of 15 on the list. I think that's where the imbalance, my point about imbalance, begins to come home. There's, of course, nothing wrong with a plan of this nature being aspirational, but at the expense of neglecting and appreciating the many challenges which this council faces during the next 5 years, I don't think so. I also question the affordability of the two principal objectives, climate change and affordable housing. Given the financial outlet facing this council, partly due to the administration dithering over several key transformation intentions, there will be little or no financial headroom beyond keeping our key statutory services available to those who need our help. The previous Dorset plan was focused, outcome-driven and affordable. This plan's fall well short of every measure, and for that reason I'll not be supporting the adoption of this plan before us this evening, and urge others to follow suit. It will take considerable redrafting to make the plan deliverable. A plan which takes account of public priorities, is broad-based, and a plan which with proper cross-party involvement in the redrafting. We had workshops last time, workshops across the chamber, kept the politics out of it, and it worked very, very well. The two previous Dorset plans have been broad-based, driven by tangible outcomes, taking account of the many key frontline services this council provides to the residents of Dorset, having listened to their concerns and aspirations, not the very narrow focus in the plan before us this evening. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, Councillors.
Councillor, how about let Councillor Gibson sit because he's got balance problems.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. This council plan is a strategic document that helps set the direction of the council in the forthcoming years. It stands to reason, therefore, that the priorities within the plan will be priorities for the budget in due course. I note that the plan reflects the ambitions and priorities of the ruling administration. Having secured control of Dorset Council in May, I accept the mandate that was given by residents and therefore the 4 priorities set out in the plan by the leader. However, throughout the process of creating this plan, I have consistently raised my concerns that the key priorities of many of our residents are not reflected in the plan sufficiently. At Overview Committee and then again at Cabinet, I asked for our roads and our waste services to be given priority. I was grateful when the leader acknowledged this at Cabinet, and whilst it has been strengthened slightly, it falls well short of what I had hoped. As a result, I feel compelled to move an amendment to the plan this evening. The amendment, which will soon appear on the screen and will be read out in full by my seconder, Councillor Laura Beddow, seeks to add a 5th priority to the plan. The priority is to provide high-quality universal services and specifically highlights waste collection and road maintenance. So why these two issues? The previous administration had an admirable record on both waste collection and recycling rates and also on road maintenance. But that is not the reason why I'm seeking to add them into the plan this evening. The main reason for their inclusion is that these are the two issues that consistently rank top of the list of services provided by Dorset Council on our annual residents' survey. These universal services are vital to our residents, and at a time of ever-increasing budget pressures, it is right that their priorities are reflected in our plans. The format and the length of the amendment seeks to match the information given for the existing priorities in the plan. I have sought to include reasonable targets that match our previous achievements on these two services, benchmarking the service levels that we have already demonstrated can be achieved. The future actions to deliver these targets are in many cases already part of the plans that Dorset Council has underway. This is not about sneaking in opposition policy, but reflecting the wishes of our residents across Dorset, not just those who have elected councillors in the administration or who were able to participate fully in the big conversation. The resident survey is a methodologically sound and representative survey, and we should pay close attention to its results. The addition of this priority makes sense, and I don't believe it is just business as usual. It's about saying to our residents that we share their priorities and that we recognise that in our most strategic documents, when they tell us our priorities, we reflect it in it. By accepting this amendment, I believe that's what we'll do. If well-maintained roads are a priority for your residents, please vote for this amendment. If having good waste and recycling targets as a key priority is important to your residents, please vote for this amendment. But perhaps the most important reason to vote for it is that it reflects the priorities that our residents have told us matched to them when we asked them. So please, I urge everybody across the chamber to vote for this evening. Thank you very much.
Councillor Beddoe, you're going to second.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Councillor Gibson for preparing and working towards this. I'll read it out. It is quite lengthy. As Simon said, we really felt it needed to be given the weight of the other priorities. Dorset Council has a proud record of getting the basics right. Our approach to road maintenance and pothole management is proactive and has ensured that Dorset has some of the best maintained rural roads. Dorset Council also has an excellent track record on waste and recycling. Residents tell us that road maintenance and waste collection are the top priority areas within the services delivered by Dorset Council. Targets: to maintain the Council's position as the top performing unitary authority for recycling rates, to maintain and improve our resident satisfaction with our waste and recycling services, which is currently 87.5%, to continue our positive trajectory and improve on the 60% of our waste already recycled, continue to reduce the amount of waste that goes to landfill, currently 2%, consistently achieve a pothole repair target of 90%, ensure that the target of principal roads requiring urgent attention is met, currently 2%, and maintain Dorset Council's position in the top 10 and top quartile of peer-reviewed highway authorities under our value for money assessment. Key actions to deliver this priority include deliver the new HRC facility, Blandford, develop plans for a new HRC facility in the east of the county, continue to support cross-border HRC arrangements, including Sommerley, deliver hedge to hedge to better coordinate the work of the highways team, the green space team and the waste team to ensure roads are well maintained, invest in proactive maintenance units and our community highways team, deliver a new local transport plan, LTP4, and make roads safer by working with communities and town and parish councils to roll out 20 miles per hour where there is strong community consent. Leadership and partnership. We will work proactively with the Western Gateway STB to deliver the much-needed M4 to the South Coast route, provide a better route for HGV traffic and reduce pressure on other local roads. We will continue to work in partnership with Dorset Police and other key stakeholders to improve road safety via the Road Safety Partnership. We will work with government and industry to deliver better recycling rates and more sustainable waste management and support town and parish councils and community-led groups to improve our recycling rates. And lastly, standing up for Dorset, lobby government for improved highway funding, Much of Dorset Council's highway budget comes from the Department for Transport. However, Dorset receives lower funding than many local councils in rural areas. And finally, lobby government to reduce reliance on the use of incinerators and support the council in opposition to new incinerators in Dorset Council area. Thank you. And finally, I would just say these issues come up on the doorstep again and again and again and again. It wouldn't be right to have a council plan without them in it. Thank you very much.
Yes, we are now debating the amendment. Councillor Ireland.
There we go. Thank you. I did mention earlier, no more than about 5 minutes ago, that the council plan sits atop of lots of other strategy documents, which contains policies. And as Councillor Gibson has already pointed out, many of the things on this list are already in there. And they will, in my intention that most of those, if not all, will actually remain in there. It's not possible and it's not right to put in a strategic document all the minutiae. If you put everything in, lots of priorities, nothing becomes a priority. Our priority is the 4 listed, and the business as usual is business as usual. We're not going to stop collecting bins. We're not going to stop filling potholes. We're looking at new ways of filling potholes. We are actually considering going to cyclic gullying clearance as part of the budget discussions. Lots of this stuff will basically cross-cut and undermine stuff that's coming forward, which is the new waste strategy, the new local transport plan. They should be considered in the proper process through overview committees, through cabinet, where members, as I've already said, will have the relevant input, as you've always had. So I can't support this, and I'm afraid most of my cabinet colleagues, if not all of them, will have the same view, and I'll leave them to comment. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Christopher.
We heard much earlier this evening from Councillor Rennie about partnership working. And I believe in partnership working across this chamber. And I would like to thank the gentleman who sat to the left of the leader, Councillor Andrews, for visiting the Marshwood Vale ward and looking at the whole question of road safety. And indeed, I'm going to beat my way to the door of the director to actually try and improve road safety in the Marshwood Vale. I think this amendment really does get to the heart of what Dorset Council should be looking to do. And I think we should put politics aside and work on a partnership basis to actually support this amendment and achieve something for the people of Dorset. As you know, I am obsessed with road safety, and I believe you should support Simon Gibson's amendment. Councillor Andrews, I think, does get the whole question of working together, so please support this amendment.
That's Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Councillor Ryan Hope, portfolio holder for customer culture and community engagement. And I think the leader's already stressed that a lot of this is statutory services that this council is going to be delivering anyway. And I feel really uncomfortable about an amendment such to this size to such a strategic document being put forward this evening. And I'd like to ask the proposer, he probably can't ask because of process, out of the non-statutory services that you're asking to be included in here, what's the cost?
Any more speakers? You can come back at the end if you like. No one else to speak? It's okay, yeah.
So it's interesting, and actually I'm very interested in all sides of the argument on this. But what I would say is people on the doorstep don't fully understand what a council does. Most of our money is spent on supporting vulnerable people, adults and children. That's where the vast majority of our money is spent. And if you ask them about that in terms of priority, it won't appear very high. Yet surely that is what we're here for. We're here to support vulnerable adults and children. And in order to do that, we need to make really hard decisions. I think this plan is a strategic document. It doesn't, for instance, have adult social care written in it with lots of targets and key areas. because that's part of what we do. It's implicit in everything that we do. We support vulnerable people. And for me, this council plan has everything in it that's required at a strategic document, and below that, it has all the really in-depth, detailed targets and achievements that we need to hit. So for me, this council plan is good as it stands, and I will not support this amendment.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you very much. No, I mean, the council plan that we've got before us is a strategic document, very detailed and very comprehensive. And I think, you know, I cannot support this amendment because the council plan before us is so detailed and comprehensive. And, you know, a lot of what is being said in the amendment will be covered anyway.
Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. If you don't mind, I'll remain seated. Unfortunately, this is coming right at this point, and it's a shame that this wasn't exercised a lot earlier whilst we're planning the document. I understand that they did try to get it in the document, but when you're summing up on this amendment, my question really is, are any of these services that have been moved tonight under threat? Thank you.
Robinson.
Steve Robinson, Litchfield Chavez and Upton, and adult social care. I've been on a journey with this. The first time I read it, I was angry. Because, as Councillor Clifford mentioned, there was no mention of adult social care, which, to be honest, from my perspective, is the most important thing that the council can be doing. But I am slightly biased. But then it was explained to me that this is not a business plan. In my head, I first read it as a business plan. I thought, you haven't got the bins in there, you haven't got the roads in there, you haven't got the basic pothole filling in there that people are looking for. And someone had to take me to one side and said, Steve, calm down. This is not a business plan, it's a vision document. It's a thing, this is what we could be doing. It doesn't mean that we don't stop doing anything else. It doesn't mean that the neighbourhood survey and the residents survey is ignored. Yes, we carry on with that because that's business as normal, to listen to our residents, to listen to the communities and respond. The things about roads and highways and potholes and bins, they're subsidiary documents that are key and very important, and we know they're crucial. But there isn't space in the vision document to include all the stuff that we want to say about that. We had a phenomenally good briefing today on waste, which I learned an awful lot about, but it took an hour just to get through some of the basic, amazing stuff that's going on with waste. So we haven't got space for all that. Councillor O'Leary mentioned earlier in a quote from the Bible, which I was phenomenally impressed by. So I will respond with one as well. Without a vision, the people perish. And this is a vision statement in its existing form. So I would say there is no need for an amendment. I will be voting for the substantive document, which is the original document.
Any more speakers on the amendment? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. I will be supporting the amendment. That will probably not come as a surprise to anyone. But the reasons behind it, we're talking about the areas of what it is that Councillor Gibson wants us to embed into our plan. And we've been told that this has to be something extraordinary, strategic. Well, and then we talk about, growing our economy. That should be business as usual. That's what we are elected to do as councillors. Communities for all. Yes, that is business for usual. Respond to the climate and nature emergency. That is business as usual. We declared this 5-6 years ago now, and we are still working our way through that. So if you want to start deleting things that are business as usual, frankly, you end up in the space of you don't really require this plan at all because everything should be business as usual as it's set out there. But in critical importance, and I get the political numbers in the chamber, there are 42 Liberal Democrats elected. They have a majority, hence the reference to it being a manifesto commitment. But there are 40 councillors in the chamber who weren't elected on that manifesto. But I bet you there are 82 councillors in this chamber whose residents talk to them about potholes, good pavements, resurfacing roads, cutting grass verges and looking after our communities. And I bet 82 councillors in this chamber made those commitments to their residents. And so what we're asking for in the amendment here is providing high-quality universal services is in that block. We don't need the detail in that block. We need it in the line there as item 5. And it is for those reasons that I say to council, please do support it. I know great presence was put on the importance of the big conversation. But in reality, we had a higher turnout and a higher response rate to dog walking on the beach as a council. So how can we take the big conversation as being the driver behind what we're trying to set out here this evening? I also know that time has somewhat elapsed this plan, even as it's gone through stages committee. We heard tonight from the leader, devolution is on the agenda. Within a couple of years, we could have an elected mayor, a combined authority. Where's that all going to sit in this? Will our priorities change? He's talking about setting out a plan here for 5 years and beyond. Actually, we'll be lucky if it lasts 24 months. And so I do say to everybody, please support the amendment. We have tried to be broad about it and tried desperately not to be partisan about it, because we know that the issues that we've talked about in the amendment affect every single 82 of us councillors here in the chamber tonight. And I do hope we can find common ground on that. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Gibson, want to come back?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. In conclusion, and without repeating what I've already said, I appreciate that some of the delivery of this is very much business as usual, but like Councillor Parry has said, I think that is certainly true of some of the other 4 strategic priorities that already made their way into the plan. For me, delivering high-quality, dependable services for all of our residents is a visionary thing that we should be very proud of doing well. And we've done it very well during the life of this council. But it comes down to something more fundamental of that. It's when you ask people an answer about what are their priorities, I think they should see it reflected in their strategic documents. The reasons that I've picked the priorities that I have done and how we would deliver that is so that it didn't put additional cost onto the budget. I didn't want this to be a wish list of things that suited me well in my ward. I wanted it to be universal by nature. I wanted it to be deliverable. And the only thing I would say is I'd ask us to reflect on how this goes. This is my first time in opposition, having been a councillor for 17 years. And I'm trying to work out how to do it as productively as I can. So when this plan started its journey, I raised the issues that I felt were most relevant to my residents at the earliest possible stage. People agreed at that meeting that it was an important issue. At the next opportunity, that was Cabinet, I took it forward and said, I mentioned it last time, I was hoping to see some improvement this time, but it wasn't in there, so I raised it again. And the leader, to his credit, said, I agree, it's an important issue. Now, I know that didn't commit you to putting anything further in the plan. Had there been more reflection of this key issue in the plan tonight, I would not have bought an amendment, certainly not one of this size. But it's here tonight because having tried and tried and tried again, I've not been able to get the issues that my residents say are number 1 and number 2 on their priorities lists into this list of council priorities. So that's why we've got to where we've got to. And if you prioritise them too, please vote for the amendment.
Thank you. We will now take a vote on the amendment.
The vote on the amendment is now open. Councillor Kippax, would you mind pressing your button again, please? Councillor Robinson, would you also mind pressing your button again, please? Thank you, everyone. The vote is now closed. And the results of the vote are 33 in favour, 40 against, 1 abstention. Therefore, the amendment is lost.
Thank you. We now go to back to the original recommendation to approve the adoption of the Council Plan 2024 to 2029. Anyone want to speak again about that? Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. Obviously, I understand that the new administration has a mandate, and I respect that mandate. But obviously, I have a mandate that is somewhat different to yours, which is to hold you folks to account and to challenge you on the issues. That is part of my mandate, as well as to work together where we agree. There's 2 aspects of the plan I want to talk on. One, I'm going to attack it for once in my life from the left, and that's on the matter of housing. It describes affordable housing. I've banged on, and I sound like a broken record. It raises people's hopes to say that this plan would deliver genuinely affordable housing. The only way to solve the housing crisis in this country and in this county, and I'll say it till the day I die, is to build council-built, council-owned social rent housing. This plan doesn't accommodate that. I know we don't have the money to do it, but I'll keep banging on about it till they chuck me out in Little Preston or I get carried out in a box. Some of you probably prefer the second one, or actually, I don't know, actually, probably prefer both. And then I must come back to form and attack it from the right, which is on the subject of climate change. This drive to net zero that we're focusing on as a council is going to prove very expensive, and I believe is being done for ideological purposes, not for practicality. Dorset Council is responsible for 1% of the emissions in Dorset, which is responsible for 1% of the emissions in the United Kingdom, which is responsible for 0.88% of global emissions. Yet this council is prepared to spend millions of pounds on electric bin lorries and solar panel here and a solar panel there and other sort of mechanisms to cut carbon emissions at a time when I'm afraid we have to admit it, council tax will go up by the full amount next year. We will have some form of a deficit unless we get a load of money from this wonderful new government of ours. Sorry, Councillor Weller. So therefore, I cannot support a plan that has this mad rush to net zero, which is just to appease. We had, the gentleman here who's from about 3 different pressure groups. He changes them every week. We have it every week. I mean, we must understand, we are here to fill in the potholes, empty the bins. We're not here to save the planet. Therefore, it may surprise you that I won't be supporting this plan for both left-wing reasons and for both right-wing reasons, but I never have been predictable. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the recommendation? Yes. Well, first, and then Councillor Kimber.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Orrell, Malcolm Regis. I'd like to speak in favour of it for those 4 reasons. I completely agree with Councillor O'Leary on number 1, but on number 4, I would say, yes, on number 4, I would say that in tackling the climate crisis, we might be looking after the planet, but we're also looking after individual people. Because if we give them homes that are warm and well insulated, it cuts down their costs and cuts down the amount of money they have to spend on daily living and the amount of deaths we see each year from the cold and the deaths we'll see in the future from heat waves. So it might not seem we're looking after the planet. We're actually, by taking those actions, we're looking after individual constituents. So I very much support this.
Councillor Kimber.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, fellow councillors. Councillor Paul Kimber, Portland. I will be supporting this tonight, and this document was taken to many, many areas. And I actually included the local trades council who sent comments in. I think a lot of people will want to know what happened to their comments and how that was seen. So that is something that we can deal with in the future. Coming back to Councillor O'Leary's point about the need for council houses, I do say that we've got a council housing forum that's working to look at this whole plan of how we deliver homes. I totally agree that with him on one point, we've got a crisis, and nothing would please me much more than to build council houses. I speak as a former chair of housing that had a council stock, and I saw the benefits of it. But I believe we have to work with the tools we've got. And it's going to be very, very difficult to go into council housing unless the government suddenly hands us down a cheque for at least £1 million and say, right, the party's on, get on with it. Absolutely. So just to reiterate, I will be supporting the document. In my circles, it has gone to a wide range of groups, such as my local town council and different public bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this resolution?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, very briefly, as a Green, I think you know the words that are going to come out of my mouth, so I'm not going to actually bother saying very many of them. It's everyone's responsibility. Tackling the climate change crisis, the climate crisis, is everyone's responsibility. It's not them over there, them over there, them over there, them up there, whatever. It's all of ours. And the age profile in this chamber has, I will say, improved since the last election. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you know, we've got younger. I haven't, obviously, but you know, as an aggregate, we've got younger, and we know. I know I keep saying the same thing, so we know what our children will say. We know what our grandchildren will say. So can we please stop saying it's somebody else's responsibility? Thank you.
Councillor Christopher.
Madam Chairman, I cannot support this. I go back to this whole question of road safety. Dorset Council spends a pittance on a part-time road safety officer, and all my parish councils within the Marshwood Vale ward that I represent are hugely concerned about road safety, as Councillor Andrews will have appreciated on his visit, and indeed the leader of the Conservative group, who I failed to mention. The parish councils are concerned about road safety, and they're very frustrated. It isn't just a question of speed limits, it's a question of pavements and crossings, and Dorset Council is failing the local parish councils in the Marshwood Vale ward because of a lack of road safety officers.
Thank you. Councillor Andrews, did you want to speak?
No, I think Councillor Christopher said it all. Thank you.
Councillor Izzard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As Claire Sutton said, it takes every one of us. And that is what, remember, David Attenborough, who is now 96, I believe, or going on 97, that he has said that it's every one of ours responsibility to actually save the planet. So please do that. And as for transport things, it's lots of people have started up speed watch groups, and that actually involves parish and town councils. So I would urge people to do that. The police train you, and actually they're very, very appreciative of that. So please, if you've got problems with roads and speeding, get that sorted. But also, I would like to say that I approve of this greatly. I am getting on, as you probably know, and it doesn't mean I'm not an eco-warrior, because I am. And I really, really do appreciate that being one of our strategic priorities. Please vote for this. Thank you.
Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Ireland, for saying that
you had taken note of some of the comments that I made last time, and I appreciate that. However, I still feel that it is not enough. You haven't gone far enough. I appreciate this is a vision statement. You speak strongly and with great enthusiasm about your vision. It's not much of a vision to me. When I have a vision, I really have a vision, I'm afraid, and this is not really a vision. There's nothing I can pick holes in. It's absolutely great. I agree with absolutely everything, except it's not visionary.
Thank you. Councillor Knock-Lacey.
Thank you, Chairman, and apologies, Councillor Hope. I did say I wasn't intending to speak this evening. But we've spent so long discussing what is a business as usual document. There's nothing new in it, there's no change in it. We're having this discussion because it wasn't put together by the whole council. Previously, the last plan went through with hardly any discussion like this and with very good support from both sides because actually we did work collaboratively and together. And I hope that maybe the Cabinet and new administration can let us in early on, get us involved, and maybe we wouldn't sit here spending this long discussing what is a business as usual document. Can we move to the vote, please?
Councillor Biggs.
I would just like to take issue with a couple of points, not the environment, which I think we know where we stand on, I believe. We're either one side of that fence or the other, the majority are in favour of that. But I think the housing area, you know, that certainly came up on the doorstep many, many times. There is a housing crisis, and it was levied at the previous council. What are you doing about it? And it was very much, well, we're very strategic and we've just worked. And it wasn't ambitious enough. We know that, you know, so work has started. You know, the first meeting, you know, Home and Housing, which was cross-party, obviously, took place, you know, this week, wasn't it? When it's happening. Really important that we try and find solutions. And no, we can't pour in millions and millions, but we can start making things happening. And I've heard grow the economy, or that's just business as normal. Well, yes, all councils, unitary councils and district councils in that place have that role, that function. But we want to go beyond that. We want to start delivering things. The fact that the innovation part makes a loss is not acceptable. And we are doing things about that. And that's about having vision. And that's what this plan does, this strategy, the corporate plan. It really is going to deliver things in those areas. And I think it's got great vision, and I hope you support it. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this? Councillor Ireland, do you want to come back?
I'll be very, very brief. I'm not going to answer the climate stuff. My colleagues and fellow members have addressed that. I've just mentioned the housing. As I've mentioned previously, this is a visionary statement, document. There are papers that will underpin it. We have a new housing delivery strategy paper, which is in progress at the moment. It's coming to Cabinet in May, I believe, and then we'll presumably come to Council for discussion. All I will say is, you know, the stuff in there which Councillor Leary may be pleasantly surprised with. And, you know, for example, there's a neighbouring council of ours which, for example, has got rid of essentially the use of B&Bs for temporary homeless people. So people have been, you know, essentially people of Section 21s. We try our best not to, but we sometimes end up putting them into B&Bs. No cooking facilities, no washing facilities, all the stuff. It's no place for a family. If a neighbouring council can achieve that, Dorset Council can as well. And so that'll be one of the things we'll be looking to put into the paper. Whether it meets the final cut, I don't know, I can't guarantee, because there's a cost to it, but there will be things in the housing delivery paper which I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with. So, yes, we should move to the vote. Thank you.
We now move to the vote on the amendment, the recommendation to approve the adoption of the plan.
The vote is now open. Councillor Pothecary, would you mind pressing your button again for me, please? Thank you. The vote is now closed. The results of the vote are 46 in favour, 28 against, 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried. Thank you.
So the council plan is now adopted. We'll move on to item 10, the street trading controls, and I think Councillor Ireland is going to introduce this.
Yeah, this is essentially a document, a paper that is trying to consolidate the policies from the previous, I'm going to say 6 councils, but it might have been 5. So Councillor Taylor was supposed to present this. Unfortunately, she's ill. So I don't really know much in terms, if you want to ask questions, I won't be able to answer them potentially. But it's essentially consolidating the policies from the previous councils, which we've inherited, and we're bringing them together into a single document. I think that's probably all I need to say, and I think Councillor Andrews is going to second that, and you may know more about it than I do.
Councillor Andrews?
Yellow. Told you not to breathe on it, Shane. Yeah, happy to second, Madam Chairman. I won't say any more than that. I just think we need to get on with it.
Thank you. Would anybody like to speak about this? If not, then we'll go straight to the vote. All those in favour of this?
The vote is now open. Councillor Kippax, would you mind voting again, please? And Councillor Roper, please. Councillor Sutton, would you like to vote on this? Thank you. Okay. Thank you. The vote is now closed, and the results of the vote are 74 in favour. It's therefore carried. Thank you.
Well, that was good. So we'll now move on to item 11, the Purbeck Pleasure Boat bylaw. So Councillor Andrews.
Sorry, it's me again. This one's relatively easy one. Right, let's start again. Dorset Council is responsible for the Seaside Pleasure Boat bylaws of 2013 that covers the Swanage, Studland and Kimmeridge and Lulworth. This bylaw was transferred from Dorset Council as part of the local government reorganisation from Purbeck District Council. The bylaw requires Dorset Council to have a responsibility for reducing speed within this area and put a 5-knot speed marker buoys at locations along the bay. The bylaws details the coordinates these buoys are placed around the bays, Swanage, Studland and Kimmeridge. So, in summary, and the recommendation is to authorise officers, so that's all it is, to authorise officers to proceed with work to amend the Purbeck Pleasure Boat Bylaw 2013 and to carry out engagement with the user groups for a formal public consultation and bring back to full council before going to the Secretary of State. And the reason for the recommendation is to protect the people's safety at Swanage and Studland in line with our bylaws and to help protect the seagrass beds within the voluntary marine no anchor zone at Studland.
Is there a seconder? A seconder, Councillor Ireland.
Yep. The vote is now open. Yeah. Councillor Shortell, would you mind voting again for me, please? Yeah. Thank you. The vote is now closed and the results of the vote are 73 in favour. It's therefore carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now go to item 12. We seek nominations for the Vice Chair of the People and Health Scrutiny Committee. Can we have a nomination? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Much is asked of us as councillors in respect of how we juggle family, work, council commitments and ward commitments. And what's become clear since our May elections, when things like the timings of our meetings have settled, is that some members of my group have found diary clashes, and I've attempted to try and resolve those with the help of officers from the Democratic Services. In particular, we're grateful to Councillor Louis O'Leary for his time as the Vice Chairman of the People and Health Scrutiny Committee, but I hope he won't mind me sharing this anecdote with him. As a result of a work lockdown, he wasn't present at the last meeting because he was, quote unquote, locked in a bunker. I know who let him out. It says, but actually, more truthfully, I want to try and illustrate in this public forum actually the pressures that always put on us as councillors, and the fact that we do need to have some ebb and flow about how we operate our committee systems in order to deliver effective service. So Councillor Leary is moving to another committee which meets in the evenings, which will help his work pattern. In his place, I would like to propose Councillor Jane Somper as the Vice Chairman of the People and Health Scrutiny Committee. For those of you who were perhaps newly elected here, Councillor Somper has a wide and varied background in the People's Directorates, previously been a lead member when we had those for children, and very effective they were too, for children and then for the adult portfolio, and then as the Cabinet Member for the adult portfolio. Has also served on things like the Birth to Settled Adulthood Board, and I'm probably, if I missed any out, there's other committees. I know Health and chairs of various things, and of course the Health and Wellbeing Board. So it is with great sincerity, actually, that I put to Council somebody I know can deliver in that important role of supporting the work of the Scrutiny Committee and the Vice Chairmanship, and I hope I will find support across Council for my proposal.
Are you seconding, Councillor Leary?
I wasn't going to speak against it, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to second. As the outgoing Vice Chairman, I did last longer than Liz Truss, so there's one good thing on that.
Are there any other nominations? Yeah, Councillor Coombs.
Someone beat me to the jump. I did want to second it because, firstly, I wanted to be able to say thank you to Councillor O'Leary for the help that he's given me so far. And I wish him all the luck in his new choice of responsibilities. But also I wanted to pay tribute to Jane, who already has been a great help on the committee, and I hope that Council will support the nomination. Thank you.
We'll all go straight to the vote.
Somebody upstairs as well, so you just need to clear the gallery.
Yeah. Item 13, there are no urgent items. There's no exempt business, but can I ask you all to stay here for a few minutes, please, as Councillor Fry would like to talk to you. I'd like the public gallery cleared first, if that's possible. The meeting is